Self-doubt isn't just in your head. It's a system, a defense mechanism built to keep you average. And most people, they never even question it. Every time you get close to doing something bold, something permanent, that little voice creeps in. You're not ready. This isn't you. You'll fail. That voice isn't fear. It's your past identity trying to survive. Because if you actually became who you're meant to be, it would cease to exist. And here's the twist. That version of you is smart, strategic. It knows your weaknesses, because it is you. So every time you level up, it doesn't attack you physically. It rewires your thoughts, turns your confidence into hesitation, your momentum into paralysis, your breakthrough into betrayal. This is the psychological warfare of becoming. And most people never win because they don't even realize they're in a war. It doesn't start with fear. It starts with silence. A pause so slight you barely notice it. A single thought, drifting in like smoke. Maybe I'm not ready. And just like that, momentum dies. You don't question it. You call it being cautious, responsible, humble. But what really happened is that a war was declared. A war inside your own mind. Self-doubt doesn't scream, it whispers. Because it knows the voice that comes from within is the one you're most likely to believe. It knows your patterns, your history. It speaks in your tone. It sounds like logic. It feels like truth. But it's not. It's your old self, panicking. Because it knows. The moment you leap, the moment you actually become who you were born to be, it dies. And so it fights. Not to win. Just to delay. Because delay is defeat in slow motion. Every second you hesitate, the future you were meant to live fades just a little more into fiction. This is the invisible war. Not between you and the world. Not between you and your enemies. But between you and the version of yourself that refuses to evolve. It doesn't care how much potential you have. It only cares about one thing: survival. And to survive, it will weaponize your own thoughts against you. So when doubt shows up, understand this. It's not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're getting close. Close to something irreversible. Close to a version of you that doesn't flinch, that doesn't shrink, that doesn't ask permission to become real. And that's what your doubt is trying to prevent. Not failure, freedom. Because once you cross that line, the old you can't follow. And it knows that. That's why it fights. That's why it whispers. That's why it always shows up, right before you break through. There's a version of you that wants to grow, and there's a version of you that wants to survive. Only one can win. Self-doubt isn't a glitch. It's a guardian. A self-appointed gatekeeper standing at the threshold of every new reality you try to enter. And its job is simple. Keep you the same. You think you're just overthinking, but you're being hunted by your own programming. Your ego, your outdated identity, is running code. And every time you step toward expansion, that code activates. It doesn't say, don't grow. It says, what if you're not enough? What if they find out you're faking it? What if you lose everything? It sounds like you. It feels like logic, but it's a survival script, meant to keep you inside a box you've already outgrown. Here's a real-world example. Chadwick Boseman. Before he became Black Panther, before the world knew his name, he was offered roles that made him uncomfortable. Drug dealer, gang member, thug. Roles that fed a stereotype, but paid well. Roles that were safe, but small. He walked away, fired from shows, rejected by gatekeepers, all because he refused to betray his future self just to survive the present. He once said, You would rather find purpose than a job. Purpose crosses disciplines. Purpose is an essential element of you. And in that moment, he defeated the saboteur within. He chose vision over validation. He chose purpose over paycheck. Most people don't. Most people settle. Not because they lack talent or potential, but because the moment that inner voice says, "You might lose everything," they listen. And the saboteur wins, without ever throwing a punch. That's the trap. You don't have to fail to be stopped. You just have to hesitate long enough to question your own destiny. That voice of doubt, it's not your gut. It's not divine guidance. It's your old identity, realizing it's running out of time. Because if you actually become this new version of you, the version that leads, speaks up, stands tall, the past dies. And like anything that senses its death, it doesn't go quietly. It disguises itself as reason. It mimics your voice. And it doesn't ask for much. Just that you wait. Just that you don't send that email. Don't take that step. Don't make that call. Just stay the same. But here's the truth. Self-doubt isn't about the future. It's about preserving the past. It's not fear of failure. It's fear of becoming someone your current self doesn't recognize. And that's why it feels like dying, because in a way, it is. Transformation is ego death. And your ego wants to live. So it fights, it delays, it negotiates, and it wins. Unless you know how to see it for what it really is. A dying version of you, trying to convince you it's still in control. But it's not. You are. You think it's just you, that you're the problem, that something inside you is broken. It's not. You were programmed to feel this way. From the moment you could speak, the system got to work, rewiring your inner world to distrust your own power. Doubt isn't personal, it's policy. And every institution you've ever trusted was in on it. School taught you to raise your hand, to wait for permission, to be chosen. It punished intuition. It rewarded obedience. Not creativity, not courage, not clarity. And when you did speak up without being asked, you were told you were disruptive, too much, too confident. So you learned to shrink. Religion taught you that certainty is arrogance, that questioning authority is rebellion, that your power must be channeled through someone holier, wiser, ordained. You weren't taught to see the divine within. You were taught to fear it, so you learned to outsource your worth. Corporate culture sealed it. You got paid to be replaceable, promoted for playing safe, and punished for asking why. You were trained to suppress your voice, taught that ambition is dangerous unless it benefits the machine, taught that self-trust is reckless unless it aligns with a policy manual. So you learned to comply. And now, you doubt yourself and think it's your fault. No, it's a design flaw, built on purpose. Because a person who doesn't doubt themselves is unpredictable, uncontrollable, unmanageable. And systems don't want individuals. They want assets. They want labor. They want silence. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You were never meant to fully believe in yourself. Not if it meant disrupting the status quo. Not if it meant becoming too independent, too fearless, too sovereign. So doubt was normalized. It was dressed up as humility, packaged as intelligence, marketed as caution. But behind the curtain, it's always been the same thing: control. Because if you trust yourself fully, you stop asking for permission, you stop waiting for approval, you stop following paths that were never designed for your soul. And the system can't afford that. It can't afford people who wake up, who break scripts, who realize that every time they said, "I'm not ready," They were echoing a lie that never belonged to them in the first place. Self-doubt is not your nature. It's a learned behavior, reinforced by repetition, sanctioned by society, backed by billions. It's a loop. And once you see the loop, you can break it. But first, you have to stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "Who profits when I play small?" Here's the part that hits the soul. Self-doubt isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. Every time you second-guess your worth, every time you question your power, every time you hesitate to act on what you know is right, you're not just rejecting a dream, you're rejecting God within you. In metaphysics, the self isn't your personality, it's not your resume, it's not your traumas, it's the divine spark, the timeless essence of you that existed before your name, your family, your story. It's not separate from God, it is God wearing your face. So when you say, "I'm not enough, I don't have what it takes, I could never be that version of me," you're not being humble. You're committing spiritual blasphemy. You're telling the infinite that it made a mistake. You're declaring that divinity exists, just not in you. That's why it hurts. That's why self-doubt doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It feels like internal betrayal, because on a deep cellular level, you were never meant to shrink. You were meant to channel the divine. Maya Angelou, one of the most powerful voices of the 20th century, author, poet, speaker, cultural icon. And yet, she admitted in interviews that every time she published a new book, she feared someone would find her out, that she'd be exposed as a fraud, that she wasn't as brilliant as people believed, even after winning awards, even after being praised by presidents, even after Oprah called her a spiritual mother. She still doubted. But here's the difference. She didn't obey the doubt. She saw it, acknowledged it, and kept writing anyway. She chose the divine spark over the internal critic. She chose purpose over paralysis, because some part of her knew to silence her gift would be to silence God's expression through her. And that's what's at stake. When you shrink in doubt, when you dim your light, you aren't just sabotaging a career move, a relationship, a creative dream. You are withholding God from the world. Because the divine doesn't show up as thunder or pillars of fire anymore. It shows up through people, through you. Every time you love boldly, speak truth, take action aligned with purpose. That's divinity in motion. That's spiritual current manifesting through human will. So the next time doubt rises up, ask yourself, who am I really rejecting right now? Because if the answer is yourself, you're not just turning away from a higher path. You're turning away from the force that put you here to walk it. And the longer you resist that truth, the more painful life becomes. Not because you're cursed, but because you're out of alignment. You're trying to edit what God already called finished. You were never supposed to be perfect. You were supposed to be true. True to your calling, true to your soul, true to the force inside you that doesn't need validation, only expression. And the only thing standing in the way of that expression is the lie that says you're not worthy of it. You're not imagining it. That pull to stay the same, that flood of panic the moment you try to break free, that voice screaming, "Stop, it's not safe." It feels alive, doesn't it? Because it is. What you call self-doubt isn't just a thought. It's not just a bad habit. It's not just trauma. It's an entity. Every belief you've ever held, every pattern you've ever repeated, every identity you've worn to survive creates form, not physical form, but energetic. And over time, it becomes something real. A living, breathing structure made of emotion, memory, and repetition. It knows your history, it knows your triggers, it knows your limits, because it was built from them. You didn't create it consciously. You created it through repetition. And now, it survives by feeding on fear. Every time you hesitate, it gets stronger. Every time you shrink, it gets louder. Every time you agree with the voice that says, "I can't," you feed the thing that's holding you back. This isn't metaphor. This is spiritual mechanics. You are a field of energy, consciousness wearing flesh. And just like the body builds antibodies to protect itself, your ego builds identities to defend the status quo. And those identities will do whatever it takes to stay alive, even if it means killing your future. This is why change feels like death. Because to shift into your higher self, you must destroy the scaffolding of who you used to be. And that scaffolding is alive, so it resists. Not with violence, with strategy. It whispers, "You're not ready. This isn't you." They'll laugh. You'll lose everything. And here's the trap. It sounds like your voice, because it used to be yours, but it no longer serves your expansion. Now, it's a parasite. Here's the twist. You can't kill this entity by fighting it, because that gives it more energy. You kill it by starving it, by refusing to feed it fear, by choosing action over analysis, by replacing hesitation with movement. Every time you step forward while afraid, you cut off its food supply. Every time you act despite the voice, you reclaim territory. You become the dominant frequency in your life. And when you become the dominant frequency, the old pattern dies. Not because you crushed it, but because you no longer believed in it. This is spiritual warfare at the deepest level. Not between good and evil. Not between right and wrong, but between who you were and who you're becoming. And the battleground is your nervous system, your thoughts, your beliefs, your energy. So if it feels like you're being attacked from within, you are. Because something inside knows. If you take this next step, it won't survive the transformation. And that's exactly why you must take it. You've been taught to fear it, to fight it, to see it as a red flag, a warning sign, a stop signal from the universe. But here's the twist no one tells you. Self-doubt is not the enemy. It's the indicator, the confirmation, the signal flare from your nervous system that you are getting dangerously close to becoming who you were always meant to be. Let's break the illusion. You think doubt means stop, but in reality, doubt only appears when you're moving. It doesn't show up when you're stuck. It doesn't whisper when you're settling. It doesn't scream when you're hiding in comfort. Doubt is quiet when you're not a threat. But the moment you start thinking bigger, the moment you commit to a version of yourself that shatters every story you were raised to believe, it activates. Why? Because doubt isn't a warning. It's a threshold guardian. It stands at the doorway of every new dimension of your life and asks, "Are you sure you want to leave the old you behind?" And if you're not ready, you'll mistake that question for a command and turn back. That's how it works. Doubt isn't trying to stop you. It's trying to reveal you. Reveal whether your faith is emotional or embodied, whether your desire is a fantasy or a decision. Because once you see doubt for what it really is, you realize it's not the wall, it's the door. Let's put this in perspective. Every major breakthrough in your life, every decision that changed your trajectory was preceded by fear, uncertainty, hesitation, and you thought that meant you were off track. It meant the old software was crashing. It meant your ego was running out of ways to stay in control. It meant the download of your new identity was almost complete. That's why doubt always shows up right before the leap. Not to block you, to test you. Are you still relying on permission, or are you ready to lead yourself? Are you still addicted to comfort, or are you ready to feel your power even while afraid? If you need the fear to go away before you act, you lose. But if you can feel the doubt and still move forward, you win. Because that's when you stop interpreting resistance as danger and start recognizing it as the sound of your old self breaking apart. So the next time self-doubt shows up, smile. Not because it feels good, but because now you know what it really means. It means the old world is collapsing. It means the future version of you is already in motion. It means you've stepped outside the loop. And the voice trying to pull you back? That's just the echo from a version of you that no longer belongs here. Now that you see the truth, that self-doubt is the final firewall between who you were and who you're becoming. It's time to take back the controls. You don't destroy doubt by fighting it. You don't pray it away. You don't wait for it to disappear. You reprogram the signal. Every thought you have, every emotion you feel, is a frequency, a code. And whether you realize it or not, you are constantly programming your internal operating system through repetition and response. Most people are running on default settings. Doubt arises. Fear kicks in. They freeze. They obey. Not because they want to, but because that's what they've practiced. Here's the shift. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. It's not your words. It's not your logic. It's your emotional reaction to doubt that programs your identity. Every time you feel fear and respond with hesitation, you anchor that fear deeper. You reinforce the belief that fear means stop. But every time you feel fear and move anyway, you rewire the pattern. You teach your subconscious, fear means breakthrough. Doubt means I'm expanding, and that shift is how you stop being a passenger in your own mind and start being the programmer. A real-world example? Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest to ever touch the game. But before the championships, before the empire, he was cut from his high school basketball team. Cut, rejected, told he wasn't good enough. That moment could have created a permanent identity. It could have embedded the belief, maybe I'm not meant for this. But instead of accepting the program, he rewrote it. He turned the rejection into fuel. He didn't wait for the doubt to go away. He trained with it, sweated with it, bled with it. And every shot he took after that, every dunk, every buzzer beater, was him broadcasting a new signal into the world. I decide who I become. Not fear, not doubt, not the system. That's the reframe. Doubt isn't a stop sign. It's a trigger, a test, a transmission asking, what version of you is running this frequency, your past or your future? You don't kill the fear, you override it, make it practical. The next time that doubt hits, don't suppress it, don't wrestle with it. Just say, this means I'm growing. This means I'm close. Let's go. And take the step, make the move, send the message, build the thing, speak the truth. Because that moment, when you act despite fear, that's not just confidence, that's spiritual reprogramming. Here's the real power move. You don't need the doubt to disappear. You just need to stop reacting like it's truth. Because no thought is real until you give it meaning. No fear is powerful until you surrender your authority to it. Your future isn't waiting on clarity. It's waiting on decision. And the moment you decide, I choose to see this doubt as proof that I'm rising, you collapse the old frequency. and transmit a new one into the field. And guess what? The universe doesn't respond to how you feel. It responds to what you broadcast. So broadcast this: I don't need the fear to go away. I need to rise above the frequency it was designed to control. That's when the game changes. That's when you stop reacting and start reprogramming, because your mind is a transmitter. Your emotion is the power source, and your choice, right now, determines the direction of the signal. Let's dismantle the final illusion. People think doubt is the absence of belief, that when you're doubting yourself, you're lacking faith, that you're empty, disconnected, lost, wrong. Doubt is not the absence of belief. It's belief pointed in the wrong direction. Every time you say, I can't do this, this will never work, I'm not ready, you are practicing belief. You are declaring faith in your limitations, in your failures, in your worst-case scenario. You're not disconnected, you're just misaligned. The same energy it takes to say, what if I fail, is the exact energy it takes to say, what if I succeed? The same emotion behind they won't take me seriously could power, they've never seen someone like me before. You already know how to believe. You've just been trained to invest your belief in fear. Here's how belief works. It doesn't care what you aim it at. It just magnifies whatever you focus on. Pointed at doubt, it becomes your prison. Pointed at destiny, it becomes your fuel. And this is what most people never realize. You don't need more confidence. You need to redirect your belief. Let's break it down further. When you say, I don't know if I can, you're not making a neutral observation. You're placing a bet. You're putting energy into a version of reality you don't want to live in, and then wondering why it keeps becoming real. You speak it, you feel it, you act from it, and then it manifests. That's not self-doubt, that's self-fulfilling prophecy. The most dangerous thing about doubt? It doesn't feel like belief, it feels like protection. I'm just being careful. I'm just being realistic. I'm just not ready yet. You're practicing faith in a version of yourself you don't even want anymore. And every time you do that, you reinforce a reality that betrays your calling. Let's flip the script. The moment you say, I choose to believe this fear is my invitation. I choose to trust the version of me that already exists in the future. I choose to act as if it's already done. You shift timelines. You collapse old patterns. You override the old programming, because now your belief is feeding your future, not your fear. Here's the brutal truth most won't accept. You already have enough belief to change your life. Right now. You just keep spending it on the wrong story. Your mind is a projector. Your emotion is the amplifier. And belief is the film running through the reel. Change the film, and the whole movie changes. So the next time doubt shows up, don't ask, why am I feeling this? Ask, where am I aiming my belief right now? Because once you realize that doubt isn't a void, it's a misdirected force. You stop trying to fight it and start using it. At this point, there's only one thing left to master: choice. Because once you realize that thoughts are not commands, that fear is not a prophecy, and that doubt is just belief in costume, there's only one question that remains. Am I going to choose that thought? Most people never ask that, because they think thought is truth. That if a voice shows up in their head, it must be real. It must be them. Your thoughts are not you. They are data. They are options. They are frequencies floating through your field, waiting for one thing: your agreement. And without that agreement, they have no power. This is the deepest spiritual secret most never unlock. No thought is real until you choose it. It's like junk mail. You didn't ask for it. It doesn't belong to you. But the moment you open it, respond to it, feed it with attention, you make it yours. That's what most people do with doubt. They engage, they spiral, they react, and now it owns them. But you don't have to play that game. You can look a thought dead in the face. One that says, "You're not ready. You don't have what it takes. This will never work." And respond with one word: no. Not "let me think about it." Not "maybe later." Just no. I don't choose that. Because here's the truth. Every time you choose a thought, you broadcast a signal. And that signal becomes your emotional state. Your emotional state becomes your decisions. And your decisions become your life. So what you're really doing when you reject a thought is refusing to give it access to your timeline. That's power. That's sovereignty. That's how you take your mind back from the programming. Think about this. You don't accept every invitation to a party. You don't open your door to every stranger. So why would you open your mind to every thought that knocks? Your mind is not a hallway. It's a temple. And if a thought doesn't serve your expansion, it doesn't get in. Here's a practical weapon. The next time a disempowering thought shows up, say aloud, "That's one option, but I don't choose that. I choose the thought that matches my future, not my fear. I don't accept this transmission." Then, breathe and replace it with the new signal: I am already becoming. This doubt is residue. What I choose is reality. It's already done. That's how you stop letting thoughts lead and start letting intention lead. That's how you stop being a victim of the voice in your head and become the author of the voice that speaks through you. This is the final act of power. To no longer need your mind's permission to rise. Because once you stop choosing doubt, doubt stops choosing you. So here we are. You've faced the doubt. You've seen it for what it really is. A ghost, a program, a guardian at the gate, and now you stand at the threshold. Not of who you might become, but of who you've already been underneath the noise this entire time. Because here's the truth that undoes every lie. You're not becoming, you're remembering. The moment the desire was born inside you, the version of you who had already lived it, already existed. Not in your imagination, in the quantum. The fear you feel, it's not a warning. It's the echo of an old frequency dissolving. It's the static between radio stations, as you tune into a signal that's always been there. And the doubt? It only screams because it knows you're about to leave it behind. You think you're building the life you want, but you're not. You're aligning with the one that was already yours. Before the trauma, before the hesitation, before the world convinced you to play small, you're not creating from scratch. You're collapsing the noise to finally hear the signal. And the signal says, it's already done. So stop asking, what if I'm not ready? What if it doesn't work? What if I lose everything? And start declaring, what's mine cannot miss me. My future is not waiting, I am. This reality was already built. I'm just stepping into it. You don't manifest by chasing. You manifest by choosing, by embodying, by broadcasting a frequency that says, I remember who I am, and I no longer need permission to walk as that. This is where the story ends, and your life begins. Not because the fear is gone, but because it no longer gets to vote. Not because the doubt disappeared, but because it's irrelevant. You don't need certainty. You need alignment. You don't need answers. You need movement. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to decide. Because the breakthrough isn't coming. It's already here. You're not waiting for the future to meet you. The future is waiting for you to remember. You've already become it. And now, it's time to walk like it.